Hi, and welcome to Heads Together, where we talk about the most pressing issues and topics of sales teams around the country. I'm Bill Witsik, Senior Sales Consultant with ShareBuilders. Today I'm sitting with Travis Cundy, General Sales Manager of WHEC in Rochester. Welcome, Travis.
Thank you very much, Bill. Good to be here.
Yes, Travis and I have been working together for almost 2 years now. Travis is A, a wonderful guy, which is why I invited him on, but B, a very smart individual who I'm sure will give us a lot of insight into what's going on in the world around us. So first question, wanted to just jump right in, wanted to ask you, the prime day part, which back in my days as a national sales manager, used to be filled with national advertisers, and there was really high demand. This is really pretty much leading up to the pandemic. But with the popularity of streaming services, especially during primetime viewing hours, then you've got all kinds of other things going on, like the writer's strike, et cetera. Prime, over the last, I'd say 2 or 3 years, has really seen a dip in demand. So as a person who basically runs sales for the station, what have you done to combat it or replace those dollars that typically flow into the prime day part?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's a little before my time, but I was watching TV in the 90s, and my understanding is I think we had a printing press that just made money in the basement thanks to must-see TV on Thursday nights, and those days are gone. But that's not to say that we don't still have a robust prime offering. Changes that have happened over the years. 2008, there was a writer's strike, and all of a sudden reality TV became a thing. And then more recently, once again, we're faced with that. NBC has been fortunate enough to have done a little planning ahead of time and pulled in some good prime, but that didn't stop us from not airing things like the new Chicago's, for instance. So we're hoping the actors are back working soon. The writers are back working now, which is great. Replacing that revenue or supplementing that revenue really has become more and more these days about news, right, and sports. Live, lean forward, paying attention to your TV programming that you have to see, you can only see with local broadcast in many ways, or some nights of the week at least, right? NBC, we have Sunday Night Football, has been and remains the #1 rated prime program on television for, I think, 12 years in a row now. So while there has been some erosion in prime viewership, certainly we benefit from good prime programming, from Sunday Night Football, from a robust news. We've added news programming over the last few years. We added weekend morning news, kind of coincidentally with the beginning of the pandemic. So that was a great resource for people to go to for their weekend news. News doesn't stop on Friday night. And then we added a 4 p.m. news in the last year as well. So we have more hours of news during the day, which creates more opportunities for local advertising, for national, regional advertising, certainly for political advertising. And all of those kind of offset that change in the prime landscape.
Got it. Well, yeah, that's a smart strategy. With that, I just wanted to piggyback with the question, your digital offerings, does your OTT and CTV really kind of almost take the place of some of those prime dollars? Not necessarily from the big ad agencies on the national side, because I know that's probably not the case. But with local advertisers, do they have that option to be able to, get on that OTT plan or the CTV plan and really take advantage of what you have to offer?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been the explosion of fast, free ad-supported streaming television channels over the past few years. And not only do we have the ability to sell programmatically onto those channels so that we can really drill down on the viewers, on the potential customers that our clients are looking for, but also, we're starting to build our own assets and we're streaming our own news. And when we are oversold in news on television, it's a political window that happens. We have options online to still capture those news viewers just in a different way.
Got it. All right. So the second question is going to be it's going to come off as a little bit self-serving, but being that we do work together every week on ShareBuilders calls, I wanted to just ask and just get this question out of the way because I'm curious. Is there a feature inside ShareBuilders that you like more than others that you feel like is really the most helpful to you? And if so, what would that be?
Is it unfair to consider you a feature, Bill?
Oh, come on, come on.
No, I think it's a little bit, for me, it's a three-part answer. The first is quite honestly, it's the fact that there are systems out there, there are reports out there that I could just get a generated report on a daily, weekly, monthly, whatever basis with no insights, no analysis, no conversation, and the data is there, but the personal touch is missing. So the fact that we have those weekly meetings and we can talk about, I mean, you start naming some of our clients by name because you're so familiar and comfortable with, oh, okay, you have this new advertiser and they're shifting your pacing by doing this, and as a result, we're going to want to consider that when we apply, our insights to your data. So that level of personal service, it is a big difference maker. So thank you for that. From a more traditional, features and benefits standpoint, I would say that it's obvious, but not obvious. Maybe it's the easy ones, right? It's the fact that the rate card data that you provide on a weekly basis that we can build from. I as much as I think maybe you would like me to just take your rate cards and send them to the entire sales team and go, here you go. It's a little more than that. We still take a few minutes and spend some time adjusting for those kind of in-market oddities that don't necessarily get picked up on the skims, that don't necessarily come up in our broader conversations when we meet on a weekly basis. But having that base in there, it's a lot of data. We have a lot of day parts. We tier on 3 tiers every single rate card. So having that provided to me so that I can make small tweaks instead of trying to build it from scratch on a regular basis is a huge benefit. The other is that I work for Hubbard Broadcasting. Hubbard Broadcasting owns WHEC TV. We are a small television group, right? We have 6 TV stations nationwide. We're not one of the bigger players that's in hundreds of markets across the country. We also don't have a local audit anymore. So for me to have an understanding of how we are performing compared to other markets our size, other markets in our region, other NBCs, ShareBuilders gives us that window into that overall performance regionally, nationally, by network, so that we can kind of get a quick check on how are we performing. If we're above those metrics, then hopefully we're doing a great job. If we're below, then what are they doing that we're not? And that circles back to that weekly conversation I get to have with you, because that's the type of question I might ask. If we're falling behind, what is it that you're seeing happening in other ShareBuilder markets that isn't necessarily happening here, so that we might consider that as a potential solution?
Sure. Wow. That is some really, really on point insight. And I appreciate the plug.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, I think looking at that weekly pacing report is a real eye opener too, because you can see what's going on in different parts of the country with affiliates, and it gives you a much broader view than just what's happening in your backyard.
Sure.
Not to mention the fact that we do speak to different stations, different markets every day, and just from doing that every day and every week, we do gain some tidbits here and there about what's happening and how it might apply to your station or market. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't, but it's good to have that base of knowledge before you jump on the call and go at it. So moving along, I just had a question about, and this one's pretty big for me because when I started in the business, I was a lowly sales assistant at Blair Television in New York in the early 90s, which I'm totally giving away my age, but it really revolves around the importance of having a mentor in the business. I was a sales assistant to a gentleman who kind of took me under his wing and brought me up in the sales world, helped get me my first sales job, which was in Boston, again, back in the 90s. But really important to have a mentor in the business. Nobody makes it by themselves. Do you have, or did you have, a mentor that really kind of helped you along in this business?
I don't believe that I've had a single mentor over the course of my career, but instead I often reflect. Sometimes I'll reach out and thank if I'm feeling especially grateful, but I- I've I've had a series of people throughout my career who took a chance on me, or at least I think they took a chance on me, right? They sat me down and said, you should really try for this because I think you'd be good at it. Or, um, you know, when I was working, so I started my career in media specifically, on the creative side, actually. I was a designer. I was not selling anything. I was helping others sell things. And the selling part looked like a lot of fun. And I had done some sales prior to that, so I thought I had it in me. So I applied for a sales position within the building. And it was kind of a reach. It was a senior sales position. But it was with a group of clients that I'd worked with in my capacity as a designer. And I applied for it, and the HR director at the company said, "Well, why would a successful designer want to switch over to the sales side?" And I said, "Well, because that's where the opportunity is. That's where the growth is. That's where I think my career trajectory will be taking me." And I know there was some hesitance to make that jump from the one side of the business to the other, and there was at least one person who really stood up for me that I heard about after the fact that said, "No, this is Travis. If he sets his mind to it, he's going to be able to do it, and we should give him the shot. And I think he'll really do a great job. And if he doesn't, you can take it out on me." And I did at least a good enough job that here I am still to this day. I'm a different company down the road, but uh, people who have given me those opportunities to take leaps in my career, who've put their faith in me to do that, I'm grateful for. And that would be both of my general managers here at the station, the previous director of sales, who I was fortunate enough to fill her shoes or try to fill her shoes after she retired. People in my previous positions as well, who've just given me those opportunities. So I'm grateful for that, and I've learned something from everyone that I've worked for and worked with. Some good, some bad, mostly good. And you try to take the best of it and bring that forward in your career. So yeah, hopefully that helps answer your question.
It does. It's a wonderful story. And again, if you don't have that person to kind of push you forward, you know, that's a tough situation to be in. So it's great to have that someone who's either looking out for you directly, who you're working with, who's going to help you elevate your career, or whether it's somebody who decides to take a chance on a young designer, trying to break into sales. They're both equally important and equally impactful. And thank God for people like that. Those are the people, those are the good ones who really look out for more than
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah, and I've tried to pay that forward where I've had the opportunity. I've taken some big swings on people when I've hired them, and sometimes it's worked out brilliantly, other times it hasn't worked out. But I wanted to make sure that I could at least provide those opportunities where I saw the potential the same way that those opportunities were presented to me, because I think you really do need to believe in people and take a chance once in a while to see what someone is really capable of.
I completely agree. Completely agree. All right. Well, clearly you've had some help along the way, but you're also a very positive human being. One of the things that I like about you, you're a very positive guy. Um, we're in trying times for broadcast television between, it started with the pandemic and then the vehicle shortage and the chip shortage and the writer's strike and, falling ratings, et cetera. What do you do that really inside the building that helps keep your team kind of on track and motivated? Because in these times, you hear the chatter, you can think, okay, well, either this isn't for me and they leave, or they get down on themselves because the billing might not be up to what it was last year. They
Sure.
might be having a hard time with, knocking down new business. What, if you have anything to share about what you do to kind of keep the team kind of up and running, that would be really, really neat thing.
Yeah, so I have a few different strategies, and I don't even know if they're strategies. They might be personality traits, and I've been fortunate enough that those things intersect. But it is about keeping a positive attitude, not a saccharine, everything is great all the time, nothing could ever go wrong, but instead of wallowing in the frustrations of what life will bring you and what outside forces can throw at you. Instead, be solution oriented. Focus on what's the outcome I'm trying to get here, and what are the steps that I need to take to get from here to there to achieve that outcome. And doing so in a kind of positive and productive manner so that you don't get stuck in that rut. Sometimes as a manager, it's also listening. Frequently, you can get insights from the complaints that you might hear, and I don't know, it's like being married. Sometimes you're being complained at so that you can help to provide a solution, and other times you're just there to listen, and that's important. And kind of understanding who you're working with and the distinction between when you're expected to listen and when you're expected to provide a meaningful solution is an important distinction to make. And then finally, it's little things. I try to involve the team in conversation, in decision making, even in our sales meetings. Every week we get together for a big group sales meeting, and early in the year I solicit, what are your favorite psych up songs? What are the songs that you play loud in your car on your way to, make a presentation or try to close a deal? I take them, I create a playlist, I make a checklist so we don't repeat them, and we will start off every meeting with one of those psych up songs. But I won't say who sent it in. And then we play it one more time at the end of the meeting to send everyone out on a good note. So you play it at the beginning so that people will come to your meeting early and excited.
I
Then you
love
play it
that.
then you play it at the end of the meeting so that they're leaving on a positive, uplifting, high energy note. And before you go, everybody tries to guess who submitted this song. So it becomes not only a fun, positive, uplifting experience, but also a little tiny bit of team building every single week, because you start to understand, what kind of music does someone like, and that can tell you things about them, right? It can tell you their generation, it can tell you their tastes, it can tell you where they're from and what their upbringing might have been like. And because we have a fairly diverse group of account executives and sales managers, we will get country and rap and hip hop and R&B and rock and disco and all of the subgenres of rock that have happened, some 80s, some new wave, some whatever. So it's sometimes you'll hear a song. I've ended up keeping songs on my personal playlists because I've heard them for the first time. Sometimes people have a story as to why that song is impactful or meaningful to them. So it gives you those little insights, and it creates a better, stronger bond. And maybe it makes meetings suck a little bit less, which if you can't get anything right, try to get your meetings right.
Agreed. I've sat in all kinds of different meetings, on the station side and just on the sales side in general. And they could either be something you look forward to or something you dread with every fiber of your being. So yes,
Absolutely.
well said. Well said. All right. Well, I just wanted to wrap up with one last question, because you did mention how you came from the design part of the world into the
Yeah.
sales part of the world. So wanted to just let viewers know a little bit about yourself and what your path was on a bit of a broader level, because we know you went from design to sales, but how did that all come about?
Yeah, so my path was meandering at best. So went to Syracuse University, started off as an architecture student and graduated with a history degree. What do you do with a history degree? I don't know. Still don't know. I guess I watched the History Channel at a better level than most. But when I got out of school, wasn't sure what exactly I wanted to do. I tried being a paraprofessional in the city school district to see, do I want to go into teaching? The answer was no. I have the utmost respect for teachers. I could not do it because I proved it to myself. And so, as it was at the time, I looked in the newspaper. What am I going to do? And so, right, newspapers, remember those? So, looked through the paper, looked through the want ads, and found a job ultimately selling cars for one of the larger auto groups here at the time. And so, I really started my sales career in the automotive industry. So, started off selling cars, then I moved into the marketing department, which is where I started my design career. Right, I went from selling them to making pretty pictures of them so that they could be sold in the newspaper primarily. Ended up transferring that skill set to becoming an automotive artist at the local Gannett-owned newspaper. So that's how I got into the media side of things from the design side of things. I made the switch there from design to sales. So I worked at Gannett for about 7 years, and then an opportunity here at WHEC came up to be a digital sales manager, which at the time was a relatively new position. It was kind of a find your own path. And fortunately, I had been at Gannett during a period of tremendous upheaval, right? I went from primarily selling print and maybe a little digital is added to it to primarily selling digital with a little bit of print added in. So I was able to take that skill set that I had learned there and bring it to the TV side, which was at the time running a little bit behind print. There wasn't that fire to get digital going because there wasn't the threat that print was facing at the time. So I came over, I was successful as a digital sales manager for a few years, moved a chair over to be local sales manager on the TV side. And then a few years later, here I am, director of sales.
All right. Well, that's a really, not only is it an interesting story, but it really helps you considering that, the biggest chunk of our business is the automotive industry. And for you to have
Yes.
that insight and experience working for a local auto dealer, my gosh, that's a tailor-made transformation from someone with that background moving into sales on the broadcast side. I mean, that's invaluable experience. So good on you. I know you didn't plan it that way, but it worked out just
No,
fine.
no, there was no plan. It just worked out. And again, because of the risks some people took and being guided and shepherded in the right directions and some risks that were taken by others and by myself, here I am, and I think I'm in the right place.
I would agree with that. I would
Well, thanks.
absolutely agree with that. So, all right. Well, that pretty much concludes our interview today. So thank you, Travis. I really appreciate it. I think the viewers are going to get a lot out of this. And I hope to see you on Monday for our next call. So enjoy.
Sounds
Thanks again
good.
for joining us. And we will see you on another edition of Heads Together.
All right. Thank you, Bill, very much.